You'd think a private military training facility makes money the obvious way. People come, people shoot, people pay. That's almost completely wrong.
Why would anyone pay for land they can never use?
The shooting is the least profitable thing that happens on the property, and the single largest expense on the balance sheet. The land itself was chosen specifically because it was worthless, not cheap, worthless. Because when you buy 1,000 acres for this, you're not buying land at all. You're buying the one thing that can't be manufactured, subsidized, or shipped in: distance. Here's why. Every projectile that leaves a barrel has a maximum range far beyond where anyone is aiming. A standard rifle round can travel a couple of miles if it's pointed at the sky. Heavier calibers go considerably further. So before a single berm is bulldozed, an engineer draws a shape called a surface danger zone, a fan of land extending outward from every firing point, sized for the worst thing physics allows. Nobody trains inside that fan. Nobody builds in it. Nobody farms it. It just has to exist, which means a facility with 1,000 acres might generate revenue on 40 of them. The other 96% is a legally required absence of human beings, and that changes everything about what you're shopping for. Good soil is a liability. Flat, arable, well-drained land is expensive, and expensive land has neighbors, and neighbors have county commissioners. What you actually want is the land nobody wanted: scrub, rock, ravines, dead ground with natural bowls in it. The topography does half the containment work for free. And the reason it's available is precisely that you can't grow anything on it. So the ideal property is one where the dirt is bad enough to be safe.
So what actually stops a competitor from copying this?
But here's the strange part. Cheap land doesn't make this a cheap business, because the land was never the expensive part. The permission was zoning variances, noise studies, stormwater management plans, environmental review for lead deposition into soil, coordination with aviation authorities if anything is going to fly. Every one of those is a queue, and queues are measured in years, not dollars, which produces something unusual. The barrier to entry isn't capital. Plenty of people have capital. The barrier is time and permission, and neither of those can be accelerated by writing a bigger check. So the supply of these facilities is capped by bureaucratic throughput, and anyone already holding a valid permit is sitting on something a competitor cannot simply buy. That's the first hidden asset. It isn't the range. It's the paperwork.
Who really designs a place built for live fire?
Now think about who actually designs the facility. Not the owner, not the instructors, the insurance underwriter. Very few carriers on Earth will write liability for live fire training with explosive breaching. It's a small, nervous market, and premiums in this category can rival what the business spends on payroll. But the money is only half of it. The underwriter dictates berm geometry, camera coverage, instructor-to-student ratios, whether a medic sits on site, what ammunition is permitted, and how the range goes cold. The insurer is the real building code, and this creates a genuine contradiction. Every safety system looks like pure overhead, a cost that produces nothing, sells nothing, generates no line item. AI-monitored downrange sensors, automated ceasefire triggers, redundant comms. Except those systems don't just lower premiums, they unlock customers. Because the certification you were forced to obtain to satisfy an underwriter turns out to be the exact certification a government contracting officer requires before they're allowed to send personnel to you. The compliance spend becomes the sales brochure. The thing that looked like a tax becomes the reason you win contracts your competitor can't bid on.
If the shooting isn't the money, then where is it?
Which raises another question. If the range fee isn't the money, where is it? Watch what a customer actually spends over 3 days. They book a course that's one line item, and it's priced surprisingly close to cost. It's the thing that gets them onto the property. Then they buy ammunition because they aren't allowed to bring their own. Steel core rounds chew through steel targets and berm equipment. Tracers start wildfires. Incendiary is a non-starter. Every one of those restrictions is legitimate. And every one of them also converts a competitive commodity market into a captive one. They sleep in on-site lodging because the facility is deliberately 2 hours from anything. They eat there. They rent a secure room to store equipment or hold a briefing. One booking, 5 revenue streams, and the highest margin one hasn't even been mentioned yet: certification. The trainer credential costs almost nothing to produce past the first cohort. The instructors already exist. The curriculum already exists. But the price of a credential isn't set by what it costs to make. It's set by what it unlocks. If that certificate lets a security firm bid on contracts it couldn't otherwise touch, they'll pay a number that has nothing to do with the 3 days of ammunition it consumed. So the most profitable product on a 1,000-acre facility is a piece of paper.
What is every single round quietly destroying?
But here's what most people miss. Every round fired is quietly destroying the asset. Berms erode and slump under impact. Steel targets get eaten. Electronic targetry. Pop-ups, hit sensors, moving arrays is consumable equipment, which means the facility is literally shooting its own capital expenditure. Depreciation here isn't a function of time. It's a function of round count. The busier you are, the faster your infrastructure dies, which sets up the strangest part of the entire business. Over years, those berms accumulate an enormous quantity of lead. Left alone, that's a serious environmental liability. Regulators are unambiguous about spent lead migrating into soil and groundwater, and remediation orders are not negotiable. So the facility does the only sensible thing. It mines its own dirt, reclamation crews excavate and sift the impact, berms separating lead and brass from soil. Lead goes to smelters, brass goes to reloaders and scrap buyers. A liability line becomes a commodity line. The berm gets rebuilt with clean fill, and the whole cycle starts again. It's an extraordinary piece of accounting alchemy. It's also a trap. Because the revenue depends on metal prices the operator doesn't control, and the moment reclamation stops being economical, the lead doesn't disappear. It just goes back to being a hazardous waste problem sitting in the ground. The liability was never eliminated. It was deferred and dressed up as income.
How do you get paid for the days nothing happens?
Now, zoom out to cash flow. Retail customers are seasonal, weather-dependent, and unpredictable. So the serious money moves to multi-year service agreements with agencies and private defense contractors. Deals with guaranteed minimum training days, booked years ahead, and that quietly changes what the business optimizes for. Not the best instruction, availability, you're being paid to be empty and ready. Same economics as a hotel, or a data center, or a dry dock. The product is reserved capacity, and idle days aren't failure. They're the inventory you sold, which brings us to what's coming next.
What happens when the bullets stop being the point?
The next revenue at these facilities isn't bullets at all. It's drones, counter-drone systems, electronic warfare simulation, jamming, spoofing, autonomous navigation testing, and all of that requires something almost nobody has. Somewhere you are legally permitted to fly aggressively, emit across the spectrum, and interfere with signals without disrupting a single hospital, airport, or mobile network. Look at what that requires. Remote, empty, no neighbors, no competing infrastructure, restricted airspace already coordinated, perimeter security already installed, environmental permits already granted. Every single quality that made this land agriculturally worthless makes it electromagnetically priceless. The property was bought to contain bullets. It turns out to be one of the few places on the continent that can contain signals, which is why the exit multiples look nothing like a land sale. Buyers, defense primes, private equity roll-ups aren't paying for acreage. Acreage is worth almost nothing. They're paying for permits that can't be reissued, contracts that can't be poached, certifications that took a decade, and airspace that can't be duplicated next door. Nobody can build a competitor across the road. That's the entire valuation. So what is this business, really? It was never selling training. It was never selling ammunition or lodging or certificates. It was renting out small, temporary pieces of sovereignty. The legal right to make noise, break things, fly aggressively, and be genuinely far away from everyone else. And sovereignty has one permanent cost. Nobody else maintains it for you. Not the road, not the water, not the fire response, not the lead in the soil, which is why the most valuable thing on the property is the part nobody is standing on. The emptiness was never the overhead. The emptiness was the product.